Massive Kremlin disinformation campaign to undermine Zelensky exposed. Beware Ukrainians and everybody else too. How it was done. The Washington Post exposed Russian propaganda and I confirmed it. The doppelganger operation and more. This is what we're gonna talk about today. Hello everyone, I'm Elena, welcome back to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share, write comments. Let's make truth available for everyone. This is what helps to promote it on YouTube. Thank you. The Kremlin disinformation campaign, as revealed in documents, aimed to undermine Ukrainian President Zelensky by spreading false narratives to sow political destabilization. TikTok has become a cyberweapon, amplifying Russian lies about the Ukraine war to millions, over hundreds of million people, and recruiting middle-aged women to do the bidding for the bad guys from abroad, betraying their home country. In this video, we will explore whether Western governments are doing enough to combat the Russian information war and discuss what needs to be done to counter disinformation and protect democratic systems from manipulation on social media platforms and in the regular news. I personally researched over 25 sources to create this video, and way more than that, just a minimum estimation. And I'll show you a piece of video from Warthog Defense where the Russian official Rogozin confirming everything I'm gonna talk about today about Russian disinformation.
Russian Senator Dmitry Rogozin explained how Russian propaganda works in a lecture at university in Moscow. Something is familiar?
Victory in war primarily depends on discrediting the enemy's political and military leadership. Therefore, portraying them in the eyes of their own people as inept individuals who have undeservedly risen to power and thus are leading their society towards ruin and death becomes a crucial tactic. The second method to discredit the enemy's leadership is with accusations of corruption, employing vast amounts of deep fakes to depict certain figures on the enemy's side as mere thieves and corrupt officials, basically to show them as untrustworthy. This strategy primarily targets their most influential and popular figures. Additionally, intimidation tactics can be employed by showcasing the strength and the unwavering determination of one's own army in achieving its goals.
So Russian government deliberately did what Rogozin said. And we will start to discover what they did from this particular article. Kremlin runs disinformation campaign to undermine Zelensky, documents show. More than 100 documents were shared with the Washington Post to expose for the first time the scale of Kremlin propaganda targeting Zelensky, with the aim of dividing and destabilizing Ukrainian society. Efforts that Moscow dubbed information psychological operations. Objective of Kremlin's disinformation campaign. Number 1. Documents revealed Kremlin's deliberate effort to undermine Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky by spreading disinformation, by making stuff up and spreading it. And the second, Kremlin aimed to exploit tensions between Zelensky and top military commander at the time, General Valery Zaluzhny. I quote, "They have been trying to orchestrate just such a split for many months," documents show. "We need to strengthen the conflict between Zaluzhny and Zelensky along the lines of he intends to fire him," one Kremlin political strategist wrote a year ago, after a meeting of senior Russian officials and Moscow spin doctors, according to internal Kremlin documents. So basically, Washington Post got internal Kremlin documents. And this is what we're going to talk about. Execution of the disinformation campaign. Russian President Vladimir Putin's administration ordered a group of Russian political strategists to use social media and fake news articles to push the theme that Zelensky is hysterical and weak. He fears that he will be pushed aside. Therefore, he is getting rid of the dangerous ones. Thousands of social media posts and hundreds of fabricated articles circulated in Ukraine and Europe to exploit rumored tensions. Challenges and objectives. Despite efforts, Ukrainian society remained largely united, post-Russia's invasion frustrating Moscow attempts. But with General Zaluzhny now out, the front lines frozen, and further military and financial support from the United States uncertain, some in Kiev are concerned that Russia's covert propaganda efforts could begin to erode national cohesion and morale. In January 2023, the Kremlin's first deputy chief of staff, this man, Sergei Kiriyenko, tasked a team of officials and political strategists with establishing a presence on Ukraine's social media to distribute disinformation. And he and Kremlin, in his face, outlined 4 main objectives. Number 1, discrediting Kiev's leadership. Number 2, splitting the Ukrainian elite. Number 3, demoralizing troops. And 4, disorienting the population. Today I'll show you exactly how it was done. But let's continue with the article. The team's success was to be measured according to key indicators. They were to lower the ratings of key personnel in Zelensky office, the Ukrainian government, and the command of Ukraine's armed forces, and increase the belief among the Ukrainian population that the country's elite working only for itself. A growth in the number of government dismissals and public conflicts would also be a sign of achievement. To increase fear and anxiety, Ukrainian war losses were to be exaggerated, the document state. Methods and progress. Russia is preparing a new campaign which consists of 3 main directions. Number 1, pressure on the front line. Number 2, attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure. And number 3, this destabilization campaign, which is Russia is doing right now. Kremlin monitoring progress through weekly meetings and dashboards, focusing on social media engagement and public perception. They also run weekly operations and opinion polls on the level of trust in Zelensky and the country's military leadership. These things are in Russian, and I'll explain you a little bit, one of them a little later. Initially faced challenges, penetrating Ukrainian media landscape, but focused on Telegram channels and social media networks. By early March, dozens of hired trolls were pumping out more than 1,300 texts and 37,000 comments on Ukrainian social media each week, according to the dashboard presentations I showed you. If you're interested to know how much Russian trolls are making, records show that employees at troll farms earn 60,000 rubles a month, or $660, for writing 100 comments a day. I can add from myself that they have tasked to writing about 200 comments a day. This is what they do. In this time, Kremlin strategists aimed to avoid blatant pro-Russian propaganda, focusing on building the trust with the audience. So they couldn't really push directly the exact Russian propaganda because Ukrainians wouldn't believe them. And at first they were failing and wasn't all that successful, but some posts really find their audience and so on, which we will see just in a few minutes. Recycling disinformation. Kremlin recycled disinformation used in Western Europe campaigns for use in Ukraine. Tactics included creating fake accounts and websites and disseminating fake news targeting Zelensky. And I'll show you some of them exactly. And the tactics in Europe and the European campaign included cloning and usurping media and government websites, such as those for Le Monde and the French Foreign Ministry, and then posting fake content on them, denigrating the Ukrainian government in an operation dubbed Doppelganger by European Union officials. And they created fake accounts on Twitter for prominent figures, including German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, and so on. The strategists sought to place stories or posts from those websites or accounts on Ukrainian social media as genuine European reporting or commentary. Russian companies, for example, the social design agency and Struktura National Technologies, faced sanctions from the European Union and were accused of spreading disinformation, creating fake web pages and social media accounts, usurping the identity of national media outlets and government websites, as part of a hybrid campaign by Russia against the European Union and member states. And the same Russian companies were spreading disinformation in Latin America. The hundreds of articles and thousands of social media posts translated into French, German, and English targeted Zelensky. The document drove shows. The people who were involved, it was Ilya Gambashidze, Nikolai Tupikin, and also Sofia Zakharova. And the Europeans imposed sanctions on them, and we will talk about this also today. Kremlin, through Gambashidze, Tupikin, and their colleagues, proposed narratives they hoped would destroy Zelensky's image in the West as a hero of a small country fighting a global evil. One of the documents sent in April shows they suggested portraying Zelensky as an actor only capable of following a script written for him by the United States and NATO, and his Western backers are as tiring of him. They proposed distributing fake Ukrainian government documents as evidence of corrupt military procurement schemes and suggesting that Zelensky and his family has Western bank accounts, the document shows. One of the strategists, for example, ordered a troll farm employee to prepare social media posts in French saying Washington will replace Zelensky with more capable president. Another article described Zelensky had pushed for Ukrainian forces to defend Bakhmut against Zaluzhny's wishes, leading, it said, to the death of 200,000 Ukrainian troops, which isn't true. But the battle was fierce, but this is not even close to be true. Financial incentives and deepfake concerns. Kremlin strategists offered financial incentives for planting pro-Russian commentary in Western media. But in the article it says it's unclear from the documents whether Kremlin was able to get material into Western publications or whether anyone was paid. But we will talk about it later. Yes, they did get into Western media, and quite a bit, and I have a video about just one of them. Concerns arose over the emergence of deepfake videos targeting Zelensky, signaling potential future disinformation tactics. And I'll provide the link to this article, so everyone can see how exactly Russian propaganda works. Here is one of the examples of how Western media publish information from the basically Russian troll who was working for Russia since 2014 at least, and published it in Time magazine. This is exactly Time magazine and Putin's propaganda. In this video, I just showed exactly how it was done. Another example, a viral tweet by Twitter Blue, subscribed conspiracy theorist, falsely claiming this is a picture of Ukrainian President Zelensky's home, has got 11,000 retweets, 25,000 likes, and 1.3 million views. The image is showing a villa in Beausoleil, France, listed on real estate websites. So they took a picture from the website and claimed it belonged to Zelensky. And this happened not just to Zelensky, there are other, and so on. Another claim by Twitter Blue subscriber, Ukraine's defense minister has bought a Cannes mansion using Western aid for his daughter's wedding, with 18,000 retweets, 31,000 likes, and 2 million views. So this is how it spread. This is one of the Russian reports. It's called Summary of the Center C, activities from May 1st to May 7th of 2023. This is content production. Total content 2,903, and it's raised in the previous time for 197. This is posts, videos, articles, memes and graphics, and special messages. This is information about distribution. Total touches is over 165 million people, almost 166. This is sociology for the period. And don't get confused. Red mean yes, gray mean I don't know, and green mean no. Don't get confused, because usually it's the other way around. And the questions here are, do you trust Zelensky? So yes, about 67% at the time. No, 18. Understand how it works. Do you trust the commanders of Ukrainian army? Is the government of your country acting in the interests of the whole Ukrainian society? What about in the next year or two, are you planning to stay in the country? Is to fight the war more important than peace talks? And is the Ukrainian army successfully countering Russian attacks? And are you and your people around you looking in the future with hope and optimism? So basically majority saying yes. And this is the goals. discrediting of Ukraine, split up elites, demoralization of Ukrainian army, and disorganization of people. And this is talking about different contents here. This is the views, this is reposts and so on. This post about counteroffensive and so on. 3 million people, 3,500,000. And this is the main themes analysis and the main resume about this. And this is a comment center, so comments. This is amount of bots, 1,492, and over 12,000 comments on different social networks. So this is what we can see from this document. Main conclusions. Number one, the theme of prosecution by Ukrainian authorities of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate is losing relevance in the Ukrainian media space. A significant portion of messages on this topic and narrative about prosecution belong to Russian sources. So everybody who thought, oh, Ukrainian prosecuting Russian Orthodox Church, oh, the bad government of Ukraine, it came from Russian sources, mostly. And most popular Ukrainian sources and local online media outlets, basically leaders of public opinion, practically didn't publish messages on this topic. It was minimum involvement of the Ukrainian audience in this theme. Number two, the battles for Bakhmut at the time. There was remaining most discussed topic in the Ukrainian media space, about 55.7 thousand messages. It dominated in all regions of Ukraine. But it was taboo for Ukrainian leaders of public opinion, and so it wasn't all that interesting topic for the Russians to get involved too much. They couldn't. Number three, they were talking about mobilization. And there was a significant number of publications of the topic, but Russia, effectiveness of their propaganda was 1.7%. And involvement of the Ukrainian audience remained low. And so on. The last one, they're talking about counteroffensive at the time. Large number of messages were published, but the number of publications corresponding to the narrative of Russia was comparatively small, 7.8% of the total number of messages. And the top 100 Ukrainian sources published materials about the dates and prospects of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, sparkling significant audience interests, engagement 43.3 thousand. So this is how Russia, and they go in by certain talks. This is post in TikTok, post in Facebook, and special message here, post in Telegram. The other one were from earlier dates and so on, whatever I showed you, the same kind of thing. It's just for earlier dates, different posts, different engagement. It remains unknown how Russia can measure all of this, especially in any precision and so on. They don't have that much access to Ukrainian public, but this is what they're publishing. This is what's their internal documents, Russian internal documents. In these articles, there was talk about how European Union put sanctions on those people who is invading this information space and so on. And talking about those companies, Struktura National Technologies and two Russian IT companies and so on. This is United States Department of State, the Kremlin's efforts to covertly spread disinformation in Latin America. And in what countries? Several countries in Latin America and so on. And talking about the same company, social design agency and so on, and Struktura, that's what we just talked about. This is another interesting article by Atlantic Council, Undermining Ukraine, how the Kremlin employs information operations to erode global confidence in Ukraine. I only will add to it. What are they talking about? In the lead up to Russia's February 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin and its proxies perpetrated information operations to justify military action against Ukraine, mask it operational planning, and deny any responsibility for the war. Once the war began in earnest, Russia expanded its strategy with an additional emphasis on undermining Ukraine's ability to resist, in hopes to forcing the country to surrender to either negotiations on Russian terms, This strategic expansion included efforts to maintain control of information and support for the war effort at home, undercut Ukrainian resistance, derail support for Ukraine resistance among the allies and partners, especially in the immediate region, and engage in aggressive information operations internationally to shape public opinion about Russia's war of aggression, including in Africa and Latin America. I can say that Russia was doing it all 10 years of the war. Only it's of course increased with its full-scale invasion. But the worst part of it, which we should know, right now it's increased even more. Way more than it ever was. You're welcome to read it yourself, I won't talk about this one much. Now let's talk about TikTok. This is a very important video, TikTok as a cyber weapon, by Ryan Macbeth. He is an American specialist in cyber warfare, and I showed you some of his videos in the past. So basically Ryan Macbeth is saying that there is a difference between TikTok and many other media in very worse. TikTok is way worse. Some people are saying, oh yeah, they probably use it as a cyber weapon, as just stealing information or something like that. And yes, TikTok does that as much as every other network, but it's worse.
TikTok is really no different than any other social media when it comes to that, but there is a huge difference. TikTok is also a cyber weapon in the terms of manufacturing disinformation and creating agents who live in the US and don't even know they're doing the bidding of a foreign government.
In his video, Macbeth is showing how it's done. Look at the users. How many users monthly watching TikTok?
150 million monthly active US TikTok users, and that was as of March 2023. The American news channel CNN reaches about 53 million monthly households. So a unit that's ultimately reporting to the Chinese Communist Party has 3 times as many American viewers as CNN.
After that, Mr. Macbeth showing how TikTok does it, how people using TikTok to organize, let's say, protests, let's say in the United States, to block some roads and this and that, and basically they're targeting women of certain age, because apparently if you invite women, men will come anyway. And this is how the disruption of your, I don't know, roads or this and that, how disruption of the life of your country is done. This is how your children and young people get targeted and get involved with all the bad guys from other countries and doing biddings not just for Russia, but from any other wingnut lunatics in the world. Whoever working for some bad guys who actually wanted to do something bad in your country. As I said, TikTok not only, and the Russian disinformation campaign not only targeted Zelensky, it targeted other people too. This article from BBC, Ukraine war, how TikTok fakes pushed Russian lies to millions. This man is Ukrainian former defense minister Oleksiy Reznikov, who was a victim of the propaganda of Russian complete disinformation campaign targeted again. He was a target of that campaign himself. So BBC uncovers a Russian propaganda campaign on TikTok involving thousands of fake accounts spreading disinformation about the war in Ukraine. This video, the videos they produce on TikTok and post on TikTok, aim to undermine Western support for Ukraine and attracts millions of views. They produce false claims and disinformation. Users in European countries are exposed to false claims, alleging senior Ukrainian officials and their relatives purchasing luxury cars or villas abroad after Russia's invasion in February 2022. The fake TikTok videos contributed to the dismissal of Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov in September, according to his daughter. Oleksiy Reznikov was accused that he bought to his daughter villas in different countries, like in Madrid, for example, which was disproved, and the cars with the almost golden wheels and this and that. I'll show it to you in a minute, because this video is still on the sites of the real estate agents for sale. Miss Steinhaus says she doesn't own property in Spain or France or anywhere else outside Ukraine. This is another article talking about massive Russian influence operation targeted former Ukrainian defense minister on TikTok. And look at those videos and pictures of his so-called real estate. Remember this? Here it is. Detached family home, Madrid, Spain. This is the account from the real estate. And more. I'll give you the links so you can enjoy it yourself. And the cars. How could we live without cars? So they simply just taking pictures and using it in their propaganda. Despite that there was a bit of truth that prices for Ukrainian army food supplies were inflated, and there was investigation about it, Reznik wasn't connected to it, and he definitely didn't purchase all that expensive real estate and cars. And yet, he lost his job. Let's look at the car one more time while I'm telling you more information. Extent of fake accounts. BBC uncovers nearly 800 fake accounts since July, with TikTok removing only 12,000 fake accounts originated from Russia. Fake accounts pose as the real users from Germany, France, Poland, Israel, and Ukraine, using stolen profile pictures, including of those of celebrities like Scarlett Johansson and Emma Watson. As you can see here, what pictures the trolls are using. Coordinated effort and linguistic evidence. Investigation suggests a coordinated effort behind the fake accounts, which videos featuring identical scripts and being released by different accounts on the same day. Linguistic mistakes typical of Russian speakers and links to a website previously exposed as part of Russian linked network provide evidence of a possible Russian origin. You know, I don't speak perfect English myself, but I'm not hiding I'm Russian originally. And the trolls do. They pretend to be foreigners. Impact and consequences. Fake TikTok videos targeted Ukrainian officials, portraying them as corrupt and uncaring, potentially affecting public trust and leading to the dismissal of key figures like Defense Minister Reznikov. The focus on corruption in Ukraine's war effort aims to undermine Western support for Ukraine's defense efforts. Response and ongoing investigation. TikTok has taken action to remove the fake accounts, as I said, very few of them, and investigate the network's origins. But similar videos continue to appear on the platform and TikTok doing nothing about it. TikTok found fake videos in additional languages, including Italian and English. And this suggested a broader influence operation. And the bottom line was TikTok. Despite TikTok's efforts to shut down the network, in the weeks since the BBC Verify reported the accounts, the app has recommended us dozens more videos that appear to be the part of the same network. Some of them were posted as recently as late November and covered recent events. That is why Ryan Macbeth is right. TikTok is a cyber weapon and should be handled as much as nuclear materials with the same attitude and carefulness. And this is how the disinformation spreads. This is Yuri Shvets. He has 1.3 million subscribers. And he is reporting in his video that the daughter of Reznikov, the former Minister of Defense in Ukraine, bought a mansion for $12 million. So he's spreading this misinformation. And not just that. In the same very video, he's talking about Zelensky, that he wasn't polite, and on the way to Vilnius to the meeting of NATO, he was swearing at NATO very badly, and the American delegation was very angry, and they have a picture with everybody standing back to Zelensky, and that's how they kind of showing it, their feelings about him and so on, and discussing in the whole video how bad Zelensky behaved, and this is everybody thinking of Zelensky as uncivilized and basically outright crazy. So this is how it spreads and how to portray Zelensky and foreign leaders, Ukrainian leaders, as exactly as Russian propaganda wants them to be portrayed. Let's move on. This is the next article, 7 steps to spread a conspiracy, how Russia promoted weapons trade allegations. Kremlin sources planted and amplified fake stories about Western weapons destined for Ukraine being sold in Germany and some other places. Like, I heard that weapons ended up in Israel and this and that. It all turned out to be a lie and a made-up propaganda. You're welcome to read the article yourself, but we will just talk about in general. And so the special laboratory who uncovered all of this, they're talking about 7 steps. Step number 1, build a false foundation. Then step 2, use forgeries to support a false debunk. Step 3, plant bogus evidence in a credible source. Step 4, launder the source of information. Step 5, time the release. Step 6, pro-Kremlin sources pick up the baton. And step 7, prepare some analysis and translate it into English. And bada bing bada boom, conspiracy spread. And the last article I want to summarize for you is this one. The West is still oblivious to Russia's information war. Paralyzed by free speech concerns, Western governments are loath to act. And I can add from myself that the information war with Russia and the USSR never stopped. But especially actively, it was going on for the last 10 years, over 10 years, since 2014, the war in Ukraine. And even before that was some when the war in Georgia happened and so on. But this is what is happening now. We are failing in the West to understand that this is a war. And this is what article is saying. The overview. Russian President Vladimir Putin's interview with Tucker Carlson gathered over 120 million views on YouTube and former Twitter, highlighting Russia's successful information war against the West. Despite promises by social media companies to address misinformation after the 2016 US presidential election interference scandal, Russia's influence campaigns continue unchecked. During 2016 US presidential election interference, Russian-sponsored posts reached 126 million Americans on Facebook alone. This is how big this is. And we are still not doing close to be enough. Extent of Russian influence operations. Russian agents have been observed across Western societies, penetrating institutions, companies, and governments. Moscow pours hundreds of millions of dollars into influencing elections, with funds covertly funneled to political parties and individual politicians. I have videos about that, foreign agents of Putin. 3 videos. You're welcome to watch them. One of them is on Trump and one of them on Tucker Carlson, and another one is about Europe and European politicians. The scandals are there popping up all the time when they get caught spying and working for Russia. Responses and countermeasures. Western governments' response to Russia's information war has been limited and largely ineffective. While some actions like shutting off access to Russian media networks have been taken, they are deemed insufficient to counter the full breadth of Russian disinformation and hybrid warfare. I personally contributed to shutting down Russia Today in Canada. Today, 14% of adult Americans regularly consume news from Chinese-owned TikTok, where thousands of fake accounts spread Russian talking points and where Russian propagandists can count hundreds of thousands of followers. Tactics and strategies of Russia's information warfare. Russia employs various tactics, including bots, trolls, targeted ad campaigns, fake news organizations, and doppelgangers accounts of real Western politicians and people. The goal is to erode the moral and psychological spirit of the enemy population, conducted through relentless barrages of fake, real, and misrepresented news. Western public's role in spreading Russian narratives. Western audiences often unknowingly propagate Russian narratives, recentering their own identity around Moscow's viewpoints. Movements like QAnon have been influenced by Russian propaganda, sharing anti-LGBTQ+, anti-liberal, and anti-Ukraine sentiments. Platform complicity and ineffectiveness. Social media platforms like TikTok have been exploited by Russian propagandists, with millions of Americans consuming content that spreads Kremlin-aligned viewpoints. Despite criticism, platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and others continue to host and promote Russian-aligned figures and narratives. Policy recommendations. Western policymakers must recognize Russia's information warfare as a military threat and take decisive action to counter it. Measures include restricting Russia's access to social media portals, implementing mass civic education programs, and flooding pro-Russian channels with Western messaging. I offered my channel to everyone who wants to use it because it has facts and proofs and real information, and even several documentaries made about how the war in Ukraine started, why Russia is the aggressor in this war, and what is actually happening in Russia, so Americans could look at it and see what is actually happening, how Russians are actually living, and how much Putin lies about it. And to decide for themselves, maybe they would like to immigrate to Russia, and good riddance for them. Urgency of action. With advancing technologies and Russia's apparent success with the disinformation in Ukraine, Western governments must act urgently to prevent Moscow from winning both military and hybrid wars. Failure to confront Russia's information war risks significant long-term consequences for Western democracies. Basically, it's undermining, destroying our democracies. And if you think that information war is not killing actual real people, it does. Just because Russian information war campaign in the United States, where the majority of people from both parties supports Ukraine, few key figures who is in the right position at this time, like for example Mike Johnson, who is basically all he has to do is to schedule a vote for aid to Ukraine. And what he does, he's not scheduling it, he's delaying it every way possible, he's sending people on recess for weeks at a time, and the whole country of the United States, Ukraine, and Russian people, and many other countries are hostages to one person who isn't even the president of the United States. He's just Russian propaganda tool. He's just Russian puppet, whose election campaign was directly linked to Russian money. And this guy is holding hostages the United States, while former president of the United States, Trump, spreading Putin's narratives and disinformation. That has to stop. Because during this information war is a real war when actual real Ukrainians in these last 8 months died, who didn't have to die if Ukrainians would have enough weapons, enough ammunition, and if United States, for example, provided them aid in time. Right now, Ukraine has to leave Avdiivka, which is not a significant town, but they were defending it for over 10 years. They had to leave it just because they don't have enough shells to shoot back at Russians, which throwing at them meat waves of people. And many Russian people dying in these meat waves. They don't want to go. I have actual proof that there are brigades with guns standing behind these people and shoot them if they try to retreat. So all these people didn't have to die. So thanks to Michael Johnson, thanks to President of United States, former President Trump, thanks to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and bad guys like that, who spreading Russian propaganda and preventing Ukraine to get help. This is how serious the information war is. So I summarized everything in one video, and maybe we'll make a few little ones about this. But if any of you fell for the lies made up by Russia, now it's the time to find out the truth, wake up, and help Ukraine to defend itself. Forewarned is forearmed. Thank you for your attention. I'm grateful for every one of you who came to my channel and stay there as my subscribers. I really value your input and help. Please write in the comments what you think about the video, and words of support and or criticism, whatever you feel like, except for the trolls. Russian trolls are not invited. And I'm already tired of cleaning my account from them. So learn the truth and stay informed. Thank you for watching. See you later.